Coming up on Network Africa. Amnesty International says at least 70 people have been killed at protests in Guinea in the last 4 years. Presidents of the G5 Sahel region seek solidarity from the international community for forces tasked with maintaining security in the volatile region. Uganda condemns Rwanda after 2 suspected Ugandan smugglers were shot dead by police officers near their common border. Hello, welcome to the program. I am Amarachi Ubani. Network Africa begins with Amnesty International saying at least 70 people have been killed in protests in Guinea in the last 4 years. According to a report by a human rights organization, among those killed is a student, Amadou Bukario Balde, who says was beaten to death by paramilitary police at a protest at the University of Labé in central Guinea in May. Thousands have hit the streets in multiple protests over suspected effort by President Alpha Condé to seek a third term. The rights group says people who protest peacefully are being jailed. It says 5 of the leaders of the protest group, National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, were sentenced to up to 1 year in prison after they were arrested on October 12th this year. 81-year-old Mr. Condé has been president since 2010. French President Emmanuel Macron has pledged military support to the Democratic Republic of Congo to fight armed groups in the country's eastern region. He made this known during a meeting with DR Congo President Félix Tshisekedi in Paris. He says France is fully engaged at the side of DRC to fight armed groups which are destabilizing the country, some of which are linked to the Islamic State group. The French president said the support will take on a military dimension and involve intelligence, but did not give details. Mr. Tshisekedi is among 30 heads of state and government attending the second annual Paris Peace Forum. DR Congo recently launched an offensive in the eastern region of the country against militant groups operating there, including the Islamist group Allied Democratic Forces. Staying in Francophone West Africa, Niger President Mahamudu Issoufou is bemoaning the lack of solidarity from the international community for the G5 Sahel forces, which are tasked with maintaining security in the volatile region. He was also attending the Peace Forum in Paris, launched by French President Emmanuel Macron. The Chadian President Idriss Déby said G5 Sahel countries, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania and Niger, could not operate without international support. The G5 was created in 2014 to strengthen development and security links between the 5 countries, but has struggled for funding since its foundation. The group has become increasingly prominent in international peacekeeping efforts due to the jihadist threat in West Africa. Countries from the region pledged $1 billion to the Sahel force in September. France has deployed over 4,000 troops to the region. There is a 16,000-strong United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali, and West African leaders have launched regional security initiatives, but local armies are losing ground. Meanwhile, the CEO of Canadian-owned Semafor Gold has visited a hospital in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, where survivors are recovering from a deadly gold mine attack near Bangou last week. Semafor CEO Benoit Desomo says the company would pay for all medical costs for those wounded in the attack. For remember, 39 miners were killed and more than 60 were wounded, with some of the injured airlifted to Ouagadougou's Tegandogo Hospital. Mr. Benoit says 1 worker is still missing from the incident. A total of 241 employees, contractors and suppliers were caught up in the attack, the latest in a series of high-profile actions in a country plagued by jihadist violence. It was one of the worst attacks in Burkina Faso since Islamic militants stormed a hotel and a restaurant in the capital in 2016, killing 30 people. Following year, 19 were killed in a similar attack. We're in Uganda now, which has protested to Rwanda after two suspected Ugandan smugglers were shot dead by police officers in Rwanda near their common border. A letter delivered to Rwanda's High Commissioner in Kampala describes the incident in Nyagatare as murder and also mentions a Rwandan who was shot and injured on Ugandan soil. It says the alleged crime of smuggling could not justify what it called high-handed and criminal acts by Rwandan security personnel. Relations between the two countries have deteriorated in recent months, with both countries accusing each other of interfering in each other's internal affairs. A standoff has resulted in Rwanda closing some of its border points, stalling trade between the two. While the 2019 edition of the Africa Investment Forum ends today in Johannesburg, South Africa. After 3 days of project pitches, boardroom negotiations and deal sign-offs, 56 investment deals worth $67.6 billion were recorded, which is up by 44% from last year's forum. Before the forum ended, participants held a session reflecting on the forum's achievements as well as lingering concerns by some stakeholders investing in Africa. In an exclusive interview with Channels Television, the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akiwumi Adesina, listed reasons why this edition met every expectation.
Where there was a lot of noise as well.
Well, first and foremost is just the amount of participation globally in this forum. This year we have 2,038 participants from around the world. You've got 109 countries represented. 48 of those from Africa, and 61 of those coming from outside of Africa. And what for me is particularly exciting is to have 1,600 investors that are coming outside of Africa into this particular forum. And we have great participation from African heads of state in their boardroom sessions, and most importantly, it's the amount of transactions that are actually going on. Last year when we had this forum, it was the first time, and we had we did about $38.7 billion of deals with expression of interest by investors in less than 72 hours. We had about $48 billion of investments going into the transaction boardrooms. This year, we have a record $67 billion of transactions going into the investment boardroom. So by all measures, this is bigger, better, and with wider participation from around the world than even last year.
Okay, for those who are worried about any strings attached, unseen, what would you have to say?
Well, this is, it doesn't get more transparent than this. This is actually like glass, right? Because you have us, African Development Bank, Africa's #1 financial institutions with AAA rated. We also have a platform that brought together a lot of our partners, including AFC, Nigeria, Africa 50, Development Bank of South Africa. We have Islamic Development Bank. We have Trade Development Bank. We have European Investment Bank and several others. And so this is a platform in which every single thing is transparent. And we also do a lot of due diligence in terms of the projects to be sure that environmental and social safeguard issues are addressed. And also for the governments, that it's very unique in this forum that the governments themselves commit to make sure that where these investments are going to land are provided with the right legal, business, investment, regulatory environment for them to thrive. So
even if there's a change in government?
Oh yes, of course, because we are quite big on policy dialogue.
Zimbabweans finally got access to new low-denomination currency on Tuesday, as authorities hope it will end chronic cash shortages in the country. However, banks have maintained an existing weekly withdrawal limit of $20, frustrating many customers. The currency was scrapped a decade ago because of hyperinflation, when prices were almost doubling every day. Zimbabwe's central bank hopes the new notes will ease a severe cash shortage as the country suffers a deepening economic crisis. The bank has played down fears that the move will fuel further inflation. Currency Board member Eddie Cross is quoted by local media saying only small denominations, $2 bills and $5 bills, are being introduced for now to deter counterfeiters. Currently, inflation is thought to be about 300% in Zimbabwe. Those figures, an estimate according to the last data published by the International Monetary Fund. Let's talk some more about this now. Nigel Namatumbo is joining us from Harare, the capital. Personally, Nigel, is this really the news for you? It sounds pretty limiting, $20 per customer, right?
Well, it seems like anything goes by now in Zimbabwe. Nothing really surprises us anymore. This decision is difficult to understand given that the country already has a surrogate currency in the form of the bond notes, which are of the same value as this new currency. As to the fundamental differences, it's really difficult to comprehend, and it's also not clear as to the end game of what government is trying to achieve. But what is been obtaining on the ground is that there hasn't been cash flowing, and people have been selling cash at a premium of up to about 70%, and maybe by introducing a currency which is not going to be known as bond note, may ease the pressure. I guess that will be left to time.
I guess there will be. I don't imagine people are happy, about the new notes. But even then, they're also supposed to be more frustrated by the fact that they can only withdraw $20. I imagine they're not happy about this, right?
Yeah, I think in my view, government is really in a catch-22 situation on that particular one, because people and then even generally when you want to look at it from an economic point of view, that the printing of so much money chasing few goods will be inflationary. And the government does not want to go back to the hyperinflation days of 2008, and as such, perhaps being a little more cautious, and they will not flood the market with cash. But still, the percentage rate of what is within the people's bank accounts and their mobile money accounts and the cash that is on the market is still not tallying. And what it will just then cause is the continuation of this selling of cash. And obviously, citizens will remain, disappointed, and the crisis will persist. The long queues, because goods and services are cheaper in cash.
All right. Then how is this supposed to help reduce hyperinflation?
The situation has to be managed, because if government is to authorize people to be able to withdraw the money that is within their bank accounts, which, by the way, is being recognized as a different currency from cash, which is a unique setup. In Zimbabwe, we've got these RTGS dollars, as they are known as, and the bond notes, which somewhat somewhat different from these RTGS dollars. And then, of course, this new currency. So we've got these three currencies that pretty much just operate and work in Zimbabwe, but whose goods and services are priced differently. Depending on the demand and also depending on whoever is providing the service. So I guess that's a measure by government to try and limit the cash that is in circulation, and perhaps try and control inflation. But what is hurting more is the continuous increase in the exchange rate between the local currency and the US dollar.
Oh, Nigel, you don't sound too excited about this new currency notes, but thanks again for joining us on Network Africa. Still to come on the program, though, in a major step to fight against Ebola, the World Health Organization is approving the world's first ever vaccine against Ebola. Stay with us.